So one of the big issues that everyone in conservative media and in the conservative political space has been talking about, especially in the Jewish community and the pro-Israel community, over the last few months, has been Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, very popular host on Fox News. I used to watch him every day. I was very into his commentaries. I thought he was a great voice. But in the last year or so, maybe a little more, he's turned very hard against Jews and against Israel. And he does it by platforming people who raise all kinds of conspiracy theories and raise all kinds of ahistorical questions about the Holocaust and point the finger at Israel in all kinds of ways. And he's been doing this for a while. There's been a lot of speculation about what is behind it. And in recent months, he's also started to go after Christian support for Israel, specifically going after Christian Zionism, calling it a heresy. And this all is very interesting in light of comments made by Ambassador Mike Huckabee, maybe the most famous Christian Zionist in the world right now, at a conference in Jerusalem yesterday. This was a big international conference on anti-Semitism, on Jew hatred around the world. There were dignitaries, political figures, and media people from all over the world who were there. And here is what Ambassador Huckabee had to say about Tucker Carlson. Have a look at this.
Let's just take Tucker Carlson, that a man in his mid-50s, who I've known since 1991, when his first job out of college was in Little Rock, Arkansas, working for a newspaper. I worked with him for 6.5 years at Fox News in New York. Suddenly, in a very short period of time, a switch is flipped, and he has a completely different worldview, and his ideological base has completely changed. That's not normal for someone in his 50s. It just isn't. What happened? I don't know. Is it that it is more profitable for him to do what he's doing now than what he was doing when he was at Fox News? He wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't. There's got to be, on all of our part, a willingness to push back, stand up, speak up, but to do it with facts, but to do it not with a sense of anger and hostility. I think that's a huge mistake. If all we do is engage in the same level of temperature, then we're not going to be able to be successful. We need to calmly, but with a sense of assurance and confidence, push back on some of the more outrageous things. I'll give an example. He made a speech a few months ago, and he made the comment. He said, everybody knows that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. Now, he said this in front of probably 1,200 people. I wonder how many of those 1,200 actually knew that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. I would say no one, because to anyone's knowledge, it has never been proven, documented that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent.
Whoa. So here's Ambassador Huckabee attributing Tucker Carlson's change to being paid, to making more money, and that it's been more profitable for him to be anti-Israel. And the truth is, there is a lot of reason to believe that, because, and it's got nothing to do with necessarily getting paid by Qatar or any of those allegations. It has to do with something much more basic. If you look on social media, you'll see that being anti-Israel, being anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic actually generates a lot of clicks. It causes things to go viral. There's a number of accounts that I've noticed. One of them is Representative Matt Gaetz, former congressman. Every post he puts up that's anti-Israel gets lots more engagement than his posts that are on other topics. So there's a lot of reason to believe that people are turning against Israel in this space just as a kind of grift. But with Tucker Carlson specifically, there's probably more there. Like, for example, we have this article, this story from the Washington Examiner from a couple of months ago, Conservative Media Targeted by Qatari Foreign Influence Operations. And it outlines the fact that the Qataris have been investing a lot of resources in trying to sway the MAGA movement, the conservative political movement in America, the Trump movement. And in here, we read the following. Perhaps Qatar's biggest victory in its post-election right-wing media campaign thus far was securing an interview between Tucker Carlson and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani in March. The interview, which has raked up nearly 6 million views. Probably should have said racked up. Nearly 6 million views across X and YouTube. Was friendly, with Carlson praising the country. Qatar paid top dollar to ensure this interview took place. Foreign Agents Registration Act records show that Luminate Advisors, LLC, a legal consulting company for which very little public information is available, has helped facilitate between Carlson and the Qatari dignitary. The embassy of the state of Qatar paid Luminate Advisors $180,000 per month to provide media and communication, coaching, and consulting services. Now, that's a lot of money to pay for an interview, but Luminate Advisors, you might think, well, they do a lot of interviews. They do a lot of, maybe they're, if they're paying them $180,000 per month, they're obviously facilitating a lot of interviews. But what's the problem? The problem is that Luminate Advisors is not providing a lot of interviews, meaning if you look at their FARA registration, what you find is that, and this is the FARA registration for Luminate Advisors, okay? It says here, name of registrant, Luminate Advisors, and they're registering as a foreign agent for Qatar. And if we go down to their activities, the activities for which they're registering are only one thing: Tucker Carlson, the Tucker Carlson Show, Embassy of the State of Qatar, interview with the Prime Minister of Qatar regarding war with Israel. Now, that is the only activity that is known for Luminate Advisors. It's the only one. So what do we do with that? If that is literally the only, it's literally the only thing that it says that they've done. So how could it be that you have this consulting firm and the only activity is a single interview, and they're getting paid thousands, $180,000 per month? So there's some kind of big money changing hands because of that interview. It had a huge effect. Now, also with Tucker Carlson, we have this guy, Omid Malik, the technocrat Muslim billionaire inside MAGA. This is a Muslim American. Father's Pakistani, mother's Iranian. And he invested millions and millions of dollars, something like, I think it was like $15 million, to help Tucker Carlson, when he left Fox, start his new Tucker Carlson network. He's also a big donor to J.D. Vance's, he was a big donor to J.D. Vance's senatorial campaign. So what you have here is a lot of money changing hands, a very prominent Muslim billionaire pouring piles of money into Tucker Carlson when he leaves Fox. You also have this obscure firm, Luminate Advisors, that has no activities whatsoever. There's no record of them doing anything as an organization other than arranging a single interview between Tucker Carlson and the Prime Minister of Qatar. So Mike Huckabee might be right. There's a lot of money changing hands, but let me add in that there's also a lot of incentive, unfortunately, on social media to be anti-Israel. What happens is when people say inflammatory things about Jews and Israel, it generates a lot of clicks. There's a number of accounts that I've been watching on social media and looking at what are their engagement numbers when they talk about other issues, and what are their engagement numbers when they bash Israel or say anti-Semitic things. And you could just look at it that way. One account, for example, is that the account of former Congressman Matt Gaetz, Representative Matt Gaetz. If you look at his social media account, and he's also, and only in the last year or so, suddenly become this anti-Israel voice. But go through his Twitter account, start scrolling through it and looking at the engagement numbers on different posts in his account. And when he's posting anti-Israel or things about the Jews, then suddenly his engagement numbers are much, much higher by orders of magnitude. And if he's talking about some other issue, he doesn't get the clicks. So it could very well be that these people are just grifters who know that being anti-Jewish and being anti-Israel generates a lot of activity. It generates a lot of viral activity. The same could be said possibly about Candace Owens. Again, I don't know what their true motivations are, but Ambassador Huckabee is probably not far off that Tucker Carlson made the decision that it made sense financially for him to turn against Israel and against the Jews. And, he continues to praise Islam. At the recent Turning Point USA America Fest, the Tucker Carlson speech, he actually rebuked the crowd for saying negative things or about Islam or harboring anti-Islamic sensitivities, which was so ironic considering that Charlie Kirk in the final months of his life had really leaned into the fact that Islam is a threat to Western civilization, and the crowd was not really with him. I was in the room. The crowd was not with Tucker when he was saying these, when he was saying these things. So Tucker Carlson seems to have become a shill for the anti-Israel leadership for the Muslim world, and Huckabee was on stage in Jerusalem calling it out. So we need to do what Ambassador Huckabee said. And this is another point about what he said, and I'll end with this. I totally agree with him that we need to push back calmly and with facts, and don't just get into a spitting contest where we demonize people or just, if you get up and you make a statement, oh, Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite, it doesn't gain you anything because he knows what he's doing. He expects that inflammatory response. We have to calmly push back and point out the lies, point out the inaccuracies of the things that he's saying. And that's how we are going to be successful. And in the end of the day, I think we're winning. I think that people are smarter than you think. We also have to remember that social media world is not necessarily reality. Kudos to Ambassador Huckabee for speaking up.